It's that time. It's that place. Don't move that dial. It's Legal AF midweek. And look who it is. Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and Michael Popok. It sounds like Seinfeld. Hello, Newman. Hello, Karen. Yeah. We're back. I'm on. And we are, I was joshing a little bit with our team here before we started. I've got so many emotions leading into the election. It's a combination of exhilaration and excitement and exhaustion. There's not a name for it. If there is one, everybody put it in the chat. Tell me what you think that is, because that's what I'm feeling. I'm a little bit on tenterhooks. I'm a little bit like, okay. But I'm feeling so good about the opportunity for Kamala Harris to take this thing. And I think we're going to talk about it here on the midweek edition of Legal AF. We're going to kick it off with the closing arguments. We're prosecutors and defense lawyers. We do closing arguments for a living. How is the closing argument going for Donald Trump off the Madison Square Garden rally? There's that. We'll talk about some, inappropriate, vulgar language being used by an affiliated PAC. There it is against Kamala Harris, and what that signals not only to the American people, but to the predominant number of women and people who support women. What is the messaging? What's the language that the Republicans are using around these issues in the close? And then you compare it to Kamala Harris with her hopeful, vibrant, shining speech at the Ellipse. I love that she took it back. We're taking it, the Maga always talks about take America back. I want to take back our patriotism. I want to go to the Ellipse. I want to give a speech that doesn't lead to a riot that tries to burn down democracy. I'd like to do that. And Kamala Harris did. We're going to compare and contrast the closing arguments and then what it means at the intersection of law and politics for the people that have already voted, like me and probably you, Karen, and people that are going to be voting all the way up till, 10 or 11 o'clock on the night of the election. And then we'll move from that world where we need to be, we want to be, our audience wants us to be. And we'll talk about what Supreme Court of the United States once again finds themselves involved with voters and voter suppression and voter purging. We've got the new edition, couple of cases to talk about there, Karen. I think will be fun with our audience. One is a case that ran against Bobby, as I call him, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who transparently just wants to help Trump. He wants to be on the ballot in the battleground states in order to drain votes. No, he wants to get off the ballot in the battleground states in order to drain votes, make sure he doesn't drain votes from Trump. And he wants to be on the ballot in places where he thinks he can drain votes away from Kamala Harris. And the Supreme Court's like, what? And but they just made a major ruling as we went on the air today about Virginia's Republican Maga governor trying to strip the voting rolls of people, including American citizens who are registered to vote. And what did they say about that? Speaking of what did they say about that, we're going to talk about Judge Cannon. Oh, boy. I've heard about cannon fire, but never fire cannon. And here, Judge Cannon, we got a window into her mind as to how she's going to handle a motion to recuse or a motion to disqualify related to all things Donald Trump, because she just made a ruling. It was a little bit prickly. It was a little bit, it was a lot of, I can't believe you would even challenge my ethics about whether I could be fair and impartial. Two things she didn't do was deny that she's been in contact with the Trump campaign or its transition team. All she had to say was, I haven't spoken to Donald Trump. All right, well, that wasn't the question. And she's acknowledged that there is not idle speculation, but a leak from the Trump campaign that she may get a promotion to attorney general if all things go right. We'll talk about Judge Cannon and what Jack Smith does about it at the 11th Circuit related to the Mar-a-Lago indictment. And then we've got, while we're there, we'll talk about the 11th Circuit briefing that Donald Trump filed at the about Mar-a-Lago to try to keep that case dismissed. And then we've got sort of what I like to refer to as the Maga revolving door, the comings and goings and ins and outs of jail of people related to Donald Trump. You got Bannon, who comes out having served his 4-month sentence a week early, but is likely to go back in because your old office is prosecuting him in less than 60 days. And then the David DePape, the guy that hammered Paul Pelosi, had already been sentenced to time in jail in federal penitentiary, but he's going away for a long time based on a sentencing by San Francisco State Court judge. We'll break it all down here on Legal AF. Kara, what are you feeling right now? Right, and you're in New York, and like, what's your vibe right now as we're counting down the days to the election?
Look, my vibe is always the same: terrified, anxious, nervous, hopeful, but guarded, and yours is, and what I love about you, Popok, is I always say the sun never sets in Popok land. You're the eternal optimist. And honestly, you give me comfort. You bring me comfort, because I get nervous. I am scared of the stakes couldn't be higher this election, and that's one of the things Kamala talked about in her closing argument. Is this isn't about whether you agree with that policy or this policy. This is really about just life as we know it, our country as we know it. Is it going to continue or not? And when the stakes are this high, it's really terrifying to me, and it's terrifying that somebody like Donald Trump has even a shot, that we've even gotten this far. And I don't think he's going to win. My gut tells me that he's not going to win. But I don't like that it's even a horse race. It's until it's over, I'm going to be stressed. And that's just who I am by nature. And so, but I love you are being who you are by nature, which is, which is truly, honestly, my absolute favorite thing about you is, and I try to surround myself with people like you, because people like you help make people like me, keep us calm, because I can, otherwise get a little bit
I appreciate
stressed.
that. I'm not an idiot. I mean, I know there's an outcome that I'm not going to like that could happen. I just, let's stay on the optimism track for a minute before we go to the dark, hate-filled, MAGA rally at Madison Square, my beloved Madison Square Garden, and then everything that went downhill from there. If you thought he'd hit rock bottom, nope, he started to dig, and that's where we're at. Let's start with the person that you and I both in our heart believe is going to be, and will be welcoming, Madam President-elect Kamala Harris, because in her closing argument, and we framed it as a closing argument for a long, long time, and it is, she's earning the vote of America. She went back to the Ellipse. She went to the Ellipse with the shining White House behind her, and it gave a hopeful message about what her presidency of unity will be about bringing people and locking arms together to accomplish things together as patriots, as Americans, as holders of the flag, as holders of the torch of freedom, but together. And it was an invitation to those people that have gotten very insular and inside their own heads with animus for imaginary enemies created by both a combination of MAGA, Donald Trump, and Russian trolls and Iranian trolls who want to see Americans at each other's throats, who want to see us seething. When Kamala Harris looks and sees something else, that shining beacon on a hill. Let's roll a clip from the Ellipse speech, which I think will go down in history as one of the greatest ever given.
America, for too long, we have been consumed with too much division, chaos, and mutual distrust. And it can be easy then to forget a simple truth. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. It is time to stop pointing fingers. We have to stop pointing fingers and start locking arms. It is time to turn the page on the drama and the conflict, the fear and division. It is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready to offer that leadership as the next President of the United States of America.
Yeah, so you have that, which gave me the same goosebumps I got when she was put up on the stage after Joe Biden and she won 4 years ago, which is a great sign. You've got that. Well, let's comment on that first. Then we'll go look at the counter closing argument at Madison Square Garden and beyond.
What I loved about what she said is it doesn't have to be this way. And let's remember, it doesn't have to be this way. Not like we needed the reminder, but I guess I needed the reminder, because when she said that, I started thinking back to 9/11 and the months after 9/11, and really, how unified we were as a country. We were all together. We were Americans. We were not just the country, but the world seemed to be very much with us all. And I remember at the time it was very comforting for me because I think I've shared this before. I think I live across the street from the former World Trade Center site. And, that day was a really scary day. And so it was a really stressful, terrifying day, to say the least. And I can't tell you the comfort it felt to know that we were one, that we were a country, that we were all together. We might have divisions. We might have things that we disagree with. We might disagree on policies. We might be Republicans or Democrats or gay or straight or black or white or whatever it is that makes us, that is our differences. But but we were all together as one. And it felt just so like I wanted to wrap myself in the flag. I felt so patriotic. I felt so, my husband at the time was working for the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he just jumped in and he worked 24/7 looking for the terrorists. I mean, you felt like you were part of something bigger and greater than yourself. And frankly, that's what I love about our country. That's why I was a public servant for 30 years, because it's amazing and it's incredible. It's what makes our country great, is to be a part of something that's greater than yourself, and that's greater than your bubble, than your little clan of, again, whatever little group you're a part of. And it's beautiful to be part of this group of diverse, interesting, differing people, and you learn from each other, et cetera. And her whole speech was like that. She said things like, if you disagree with me, I'm not going to put you in a concentration camp like Donald Trump will. I'm going to give you a seat at the table and help me make policy and help me make things better. And because I'm going to serve everyone, not just the people who agree with me, I'm going to serve you too. And it just reminded me so much of really what the best of America, and who we could be, and who we ought to be, and who we truly are in our core. And so her speech for me was, I had tears in my eyes and chills, because I thought she's amazing. She's really amazing. She truly is such a great person who cares so deeply for this country, and she will make an incredible president. And I just really hope that that's what ends up happening, because I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. And she's not going to do things like Donald Trump's advisors have admitted. She's not going to trash the economy. She's not going to kill job creation. She's not going to tariff our way into a depression in an economic policy. She's going to continue to do the things that strengthen America and make an economy for everyone. I said to somebody recently, this is what Democrats generally say, that if you're a Republican and you get Social Security or Medicare, Medicaid, you get anything from student loans or things like that, you can thank a Democrat, because those are all Democratic policies that people now love and they never want to give up. Where do they think it came from? It came from the Johnson administration. It came from the FDR administration. It came from the Carter and Clinton and Obama administration. If you like your health care, if you like keeping children out of poverty, these are programs that distinguish our society from what Donald Trump and Elon Musk think it is, which is a business. We're not a business. If businesses could get rid of union workers and protections over union workers and make more money, they would. They would never provide military protection unless they were being paid to do so. And they wouldn't provide a social safety net for those in our society that aren't 247 billion heirs like Elon Musk. And so you don't want to pick somebody that somehow ran a business. That's not going to prepare you to pull the levers of power in our democracy. You need somebody who has a healthy respect for the rules of law, for it used to be three co-equal branches of government, but that sticks in my throat now, ever since the Supreme Court elevated the presidency above it all. But you need somebody who has a healthy understanding of American values and our constitutional framework and honors it, and then surrounds themselves with really smart people, because there's too many levers of power for one person to do it alone. That's why we call it an administration. It's not just the person. Yes, the person is the top. It's the tone at the top. They make the final decision, and the buck stops with them. And I want the buck to stop with somebody like Kamala Harris, with the character to lead and to hold the torch of freedom around the world, to be a beacon so that we support by continuing successfully our democratic experiment. We support democracy around the world. That's why our enemies want Donald Trump to be the leader of the brand called America, because we won't make any new democracies around the world, because nobody will be attracted to our experiment here. It looks like to the outside world, there were a bunch of seething lunatics at each other's throats. Not us. It's not the people on this side of the aisle, but we contrast Kamala Harris and her closing argument to earn the votes, where she's spending a considerable amount of time pitching a tent in places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, going to Texas for Beyonce, which I thought was a great sign of confidence, not because she thinks she's going to win Texas, maybe, but because she wants to reach out to people like the people in Texas and try to get them over, those independents, those people that have not yet made their decision. That's who she's talking to when she says link arms. Link arms with your fellow neighbor, because everybody that Donald Trump is talking about, attacking, imprisoning, using the military against, putting in a concentration camp, and some deporting, are American citizens. And that's not who should be the leader of the free world. He should be maybe a alt-right wing podcaster, maybe, but he shouldn't be measuring the drapes for the Oval Office. And so let's look at the counter argument and the waning days, the closing argument of Donald Trump. Why don't we roll a clip of that?
Many years ago, I had a father who was a great guy. He was a strong guy, a legitimate guy, strong. But he always used to tell me, never use the word Nazi and never use the word Hitler. Now we're called Nazis, and I'm called Hitler. I'm not Hitler. Boy, my father.
Well, you are, according to J.D. Vance, who's running alongside you, because J.D. Vance called him the American Hitler when he was trying to sell a book. He said he was a narcotic in the arm of America. He was a dumb loser until he grew a beard and decided he wanted to, be one heartbeat away from the presidency. And then it got worse. I didn't think watching Madison Square Garden, which brought me back instantly. I mean, I did it here on the Midas Touch Network. I mean, I knew about the 1939 rally of the German-American Bund Association in support of Adolf Hitler in Madison Square Garden. It was the only comparator we could come up with historically at how dark and hateful the presentation was. Primarily all men. There were very few women up there. I think, Melania strode in and didn't say a word, and maybe somebody else, but the rest of them were just men attacking women, attacking immigrants, attacking Latins, attacking Puerto Ricans, attacking Jews. I mean, I was like, what? Seriously? This was the missing fifth night of the Republican National Convention? It got worse. I mean, with the opening comedian Kill Tony, whoever that guy is. All I know is he's killing Donald Trump's chances of prevailing in November with those kind of comments. And then Donald Trump doubled down on the comments. J.D. Vance doubled down on the comments. And then running alongside them, running a political action committee called America, is Elon Musk, in coordination, of course, with the Trump campaign. And he decides it's now high time, with 7 days to go left in making our decision, that that Donald Trump effectively called Kamala Harris the C word. Do we have a clip?
Warning: this ad contains multiple instances of the C word. Viewer discretion is advised. Kamala Harris is a C word. You heard that right. A big old C word. In fact, all of the other C words think she's the biggest C word of them all. That's right, she's a tax-hiking, regulation-loving, gun-grabbing communist. And the worst part? She's proud of it. Kamala Harris, the C word America simply can't afford. See you nationwide, Tuesday, November 5th.
Look at the end of that. I hadn't even noticed that. Thanks for running that. CU nationwide. He almost said Tuesday. He just spelled out the word that word you never say about a woman's genitalia at the end. See you next Tuesday, which, by the way, just to bring it full circle, that is exactly what Donald Trump told Robbie Kaplan, the lawyer for E. Jean Carroll, at the end of the deposition related to his rape and sexual assault of E. Jean Carroll. He said on the way out to Robbie Kaplan, the lawyer, because it's been reported, see you next Tuesday, calling her that word. And she looked around at her friends, like the colleagues in the room said, we don't have another scheduled event. And someone had to pull Robbie aside and said, he just called you the C word. This is America for a portion of America. Is it? I just as I believe in the jury system, I want to hear your view. I believe that we are better than somebody calling his opponent the C word on the way into an election, and that the American people and the majority of the Electoral College will recognize that. What do you think?
Look, I have a strong feeling about this, which is he appeals to part of the electorate who likes a tough guy. That's it. And this is his way of being like, look what I can do. And I can get away with it and win. And he pushes the envelope over and over and over again. And he goes places nobody would ever go. And nobody will ever think that anyone could go, because it's his way of FUing the system. And it's his way of being a tough guy to all the other tough guys. And, it's something that we just have to acknowledge, because there are people who, they really, I can't understand it. I don't know why, but there are people who that's what they value. I mean, look at how he was talking about his father being strong. He's a strong guy, a tough guy. That is incredibly, like, it's almost like a dog whistle or a code to each other. We're strong men. And they almost think like that women want to hear that, like they're going to take care of women. And so just him being able to say something like that, there's no innuendo there. They're absolutely trying to say what we think they're trying to say. And they want us to get outraged. They laugh in our faces when we get outraged, because they're just like, whatever, we can do it and we're going to get away with it and people are going to vote for us anyway. And that's all this is. This is just, it's almost like those guys who drive around with those cars that, with them, they make the engine go really strong and, it drives everybody crazy. And, they just do it. It's like, I don't know why men do that. I don't know why men, not all men, of course, but why there's a certain population, a certain type of man who that appeals to. I've never understood it. I don't like it. And that's just who he's trying to appeal to by doing stuff like that. He's gross. He's so not presidential. He's a self-interested individual who was looking for a get out of jail free card. He has no interest in serving the public. He has no interest in helping this country. He wants to install his friends and family into jobs where he can make the rich richer. Elon Musk is going to be in charge of all the agencies that regulate Elon Musk and give Elon Musk government contracts so Elon Musk can secure his billions and make sure he doesn't lose them, if not make more of them. Same thing with Jeff Bezos, who either supports Donald Trump or is too afraid to go into to cross him, and pulls the Washington Post endorsement of Kamala Harris at the very last minute for the first time. He coined the phrase "democracy dies in darkness," and for the first time, Washington Post is not going to endorse a candidate. He does it a week before the election. I mean, clearly, he's doing it because he wants to hedge his bets. He doesn't want to piss off the guy who might be a dictator, frankly, who's going to take revenge on his enemies. And this is who's going to succeed under the Donald Trump world. It's going to be his friends, his family. He's going to go after his enemies, anyone who says anything negative against him, and he's going to make the rich richer, and the rest of us are going to pay the price. I mean, there's no question about it. And he's doing it by appealing to this tough guy kind of sense of sensibility. But you know what? There is nothing tougher than a prosecutor, nothing. And Kamala Harris is a lifelong prosecutor. She took on, I love when they say, oh, the border, open borders, et cetera. She took on drug cartels in California. California's a border state. And she took on the criminals who came through. Criminals and immigrants aren't the same thing. And so she took on the criminals, and some of them are immigrants, some of them are not. There's nobody tougher than a prosecutor or former prosecutor. And so this false bravado, this name calling, this whatever, this, roaring his engine, it's not tough. It's just bluster. And so that's all he's doing there, in my opinion.
Yeah. Nikki Haley went on Fox News, which Fox, of course, billed as Nikki Haley endorses Donald Trump. No. If you listen to Nikki Haley, she has, right in the middle of the Brett Baier interview, I did a clip on this for Legal AF, the YouTube channel, in which she says this hyper masculinity, this bromance where he's going after the vote, ignoring the 53% of voters who are women who vote in larger numbers than men, the use of the C word to go after her. She actually defended Kamala Harris. She said she was a prosecutor. She's smart. Get off her looks, get off her intelligence and all the other misogynist tropes and focus on the issues. We haven't seen hide nor hair of Nikki Haley since she, quote unquote, endorsed Donald Trump back in July. She's not on the campaign trail for him. Neither is Ivanka Trump. Neither is anybody else. Effectively, anybody notice that? There's nobody on the campaign trail for him. No proxies. He does it all by, I don't even know what he's doing these days.
Well,
after
Musk
Madison
does.
Square Garden. What is it?
Elon Musk does. He's the only one who seems to appear on his behalf, right?
But Elon Musk has got he's a mixed bag when it comes to Americans. I mean, you either love Tesla or you realize what Elon Musk is all about. So we're going to talk about moving from the politics part to the intersection of politics part. We're going to pick up with the Supreme Court of the United States and what they're doing about voting, disenfranchising certain people, allowing for the purging of votes to happen, and how they're already making decisions that will influence inevitably the outcome of the election. We got Judge Cannon back in the news. She knows that she was offered publicly offered the job of Attorney General. And what did she do about it in her courtroom when it was raised in a motion? We know now because she's issued a new order. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised, but we're going to detail it and talk about what it means for the future. And then we've got that revolving door of Maga coming into jail and out of jail. What does it mean for Steve Bannon, particularly being prosecuted by your old office? You'll have some great insight there as justice is done, as it relates, at least partial justice is done, as for the attacker, the Maga attacker of Paul Pelosi. We'll cover that all. And we're gonna take a break here to pay the bills. Let's be frank. There's a number of ways to support what the community that we've built here, the network we've built here, completely independently without outside money. You talked about Elon. You talked about Jeff Bezos, who had frequent wars with Donald Trump back in the day. In fact, Jeff Bezos thinks that Donald Trump and his team were responsible for a leak about 5 or 10 years ago against him personally. So I wasn't surprised when he killed literally the editorial page of his paper. Democracy did die in the darkness. He did kill the endorsement of Kamala Harris, but the billionaire owner of the Los Angeles Times did the exact same thing about a day earlier. And this is what happens when media is not independent and when there is no wall between the editor and the publisher, where we have here. We have no wall. We only have you in support. We've got our pro-democracy sponsors who know what our show is all about, who knows about the Midas Touch Network and Legal AF, and wants to be here to talk to our audience. And that's why we do that. And then we've got something that we're building to kind of endure beyond on the other side of Tuesday, which is the Legal AF's YouTube channel, Legal AF, which is at Legal AF MTN. I'm the kind of the chief curator there, and it's in collaboration with the Midas Touch Network. We got some great people coming over from the Midas universe to do hot takes. Karen Friedman Agnifilo, a regular over there. Tina Dahl and I do a show called Unprecedented once a week about what else this current term of the United States Supreme Court. We got court accountability action. We got Sean Wu, another former federal prosecutor doing regular videos there. And of course, I'm doing a lot of them during the day. So come on over, free subscribe, find out it's hard to believe these numbers. We're already at 16 million views of our work in 5 weeks and over 260,000 subscribers in a very short amount of time. That's because of you coming over there and enjoying what we're doing. We appreciate you. Hit the free subscribe button, that little blue oval button, and help us build that other channel so it's there as an enduring part of our community here at Midas beyond the election. We got a Patreon page, patreon.com/legalaf. We're doing some unique stuff there. You can have access to some of the leaders of Legal AF on a regular basis, including town halls. And then we've got, of course, our first set of sponsors on this particular show. Does this election cycle have your stress at a level 10? Is the lingering summer heat impacting your focus? Looking for some levity, but need to embrace life with your hands on the wheel? Enhance your everyday with Via. Via is a company dedicated to harnessing the natural benefits of hemp to create high-quality wellness products. From elevating your focus to chilling out after a long day, Via has something for you. With award-winning THC and THC-free gummies, Via has a dosage to encourage your comfort. No need to block off hours of the day for an unproductive high when you can experience the full spectrum of benefits from cannabis and hemp products with a microdose of THC to give you a little boost without compromising your responsibilities. Via is also well-renowned for their premium indoor THCA flower, soothing topicals, and calming drops, all crafted with the highest quality hemp sourced from trusted, independently owned American farms. Unlock the power of nature with Via's organic and vegan hemp extracts, perfect for relaxation and rejuvenation. Via is the only lifestyle hemp brand. They use compounds found in hemp along with active plant extracts to create products, each with a specific effect in mind. Whether you want to get better sleep, ease anxiety, or enhance your mood, they have something for you. And if THC isn't for you, you can still take advantage of their CBD line with products designed for sleep, focus, and energy that will keep you glowing all summer and fall. And the best part, Via legally ships to all 50 states in discreet packaging directly to your door with a worry-free guarantee. No medical card required. To keep me sharp and on my game, I use the Elevate Focus Gummies with a low THC microdose. It's just what I need at just the right moment. And the Mango Tango flavor can't be beat. Trusted by over 500,000 happy customers for their wellness needs, Via is the brand everyone is raving about. If you're 21 or over, check out the link to Via in our description and use the code LegalAF to receive 15% off. After you purchase, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Enhance your everyday with Via. I have a secret weapon. No, it's not my stylish eyewear, although I do like them. It's my ability to always find a parking spot on the streets of Manhattan, despite complicated alternate side of the street parking rules and conflicting street signs that make no sense. A secret weapon is a great asset to have in your back pocket. It helps you get ahead in life. That's how Mack Weldon thinks about clothing, as a secret weapon. Timeless, classic style that's infused with performance fabrics and hidden details. Whether you're looking for light as air underwear, anti-odor tees, or sweaters with lightweight warmth, Mack Weldon has a full range of clothes that feel comfortable all day long. And they never go out of style. Mack Weldon and their comfortable yet modern and stylish clothing means that when I reach for their clothes in my closet and put them on to tackle my day, I instantly feel confident that my clothes are making the right impression on people I may meet or when I record. It's always the perfect fit, wash after wash, and how my clothes look is now one less thing I have to worry about to start my busy day. It's not just that they are soft to the touch and on the body. It's that they are reliably cut and designed to signal to the world, I got this. And, hey, don't tow my car, please. They're not flashy, just classic, always in style, and made from the world's most comfortable performance materials. Mack Weldon clothes are designed to fit your style and the demands of modern life. They look like regular clothes, but feel like the latest in modern comfort. They're the go-to choice for guys who want to look great without even trying. And if you aren't convinced yet, well, wait until you try Mack Weldon's crazy comfortable but elevated sweatpants in their Ace collection. You won't go anywhere else for high performance and comfortable, classically cut clothes again. Get timeless looks with modern comfort from Mack Weldon. Go to MackWeldon.com and get 25% off your first order of $125 or more with promo code LegalAF. That's MackWeldon.com, promo code LegalAF. And we're back. I've made a decision based on watching those ads. I got to keep the beard. I don't think there's any way around it.
I told you before, I like the beard. I prefer the beard. I've said
this
that
is the beard you like. This is the early version of the beard. When
I'm looking closely. No, I like the beard. I don't know what it is. I think some people with, some people without. I'm a fan of the beard.
The best part, and the reason I have it, is my wife likes the beard, which is, because if she didn't, then we're sort of done. And
you mean your real wife as opposed to your
podcast wife.
Yeah, your podcast wife.
To those so I'll tell this story. Last week, I went out to dinner and drinks with the mistrial team, and I want to talk about mistrial for a minute. So we got to drinks for mistrial. I meet at the office where they practice law, and we get together as a group with some other people. We end up across the street at a nice place in New York that we all liked, and spent quite a bit of time there talking about a lot of different things, cases that people are working on and different things. And at one point, somebody close to you showed up and there I was. And somebody at the table said something like, "Oh, look, your other husband's here."
It's true. It's true though. I think I said it.
Yeah. Oh, my two dads, my two husbands are here.
My two husbands, my podcast husband and my actual husband. Hilarious. But that was so much fun, Popok. I loved that. We had a great time.
We're going to do it more often.
Yeah, we didn't. I don't think we meant to stay out as late as we did, but we were having so much fun. We ended up staying out much later.
I made the mistake of going to the bathroom, and one of the people disappeared. Where'd she go? But now we're back here, and don't forget on Thursdays, Halloween Thursday, at some point, mistrial, which we're talking about. Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, Danya Perry, Kathleen Rice. They're not just three friends; they're three former prosecutors and one member of Congress, and they bring it to you the way nobody else. They're tough as nails. They are on Midas Touch Network. Mistrial on Thursdays, right here. Let's pick up with
before you leave mistrial. I just want to say we got an incredible guest this week.
Tell them who they are. Tell them who it is.
Jen Rubin, who is Washington Post columnist, and she's one of the people who's been outspoken talking about Jeff Bezos and the decision. I mean, really calling out her boss. And she's also just brilliant. She's a former attorney. She's this incredibly hard-hitting journalist, and she's a former Republican turned Democrat. So anyway, she's just this brilliant, really fascinating woman who's been covering all of these issues. And
I have an idea. I have an idea for mistrial. I'm going to share it here. I think you guys should take a page out of the Smartless podcast that I love, and each one of you should bring on a new guest, but not tell the rest of the people who the guest is so they don't prepare. Right? That's what they do. That's what Will Arnett.
We usually do that. You know why? Because we're former prosecutors, and we're used to. Sometimes your witness shows up, and you have never spoken to them before.
Right.
You have no idea what they're going to say, and you put them on the stand, and we know how to do that. So
you should think that's fun when they do it. You should think about that. All right. Speaking of fun and not fun, let's talk about the Supreme Court of the United States once again. Let's start with, I'll do RFK Jr. And you want to do Virginia?
Sure.
That just happened today? All right. So RFK Jr., can this guy just go away? Can I start with that? Can he just go away and change his name? Because he's not a Kennedy as far as I can see. Nobody in the Kennedy family wants him. Nobody wants him to be, no one in their right mind wants him to be the head of the Center for Disease Control. Nobody in their right mind wants him to be in charge of vaccine policy. Nobody wants him to be the Anthony Fauci for Donald Trump. Nobody, except for him and Donald Trump. And so this weirdo decides that he's going to throw his hat in the ring or whatever, throw his endorsement over to Donald Trump. And at the time, I remember, this just shows you how the media is so out of whack. You know, that'll be picked up on your mistrial podcast with Jen, but the media is so out of whack. You know, I remember when it was just 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, I was reminiscing. I remember when RFK Jr. dropped out and the media, mainstream media was like, oh my God, it's a game changer, 1.5%. He's been polling. He'll be throwing it to Donald Trump. Can Kamala Harris recover from it? How has that gone since? First of all, the people that were supporting RFK Jr. were sort of the people that were supporting Bernie at one point. They were just, you know, contrarians who didn't want to vote for the two-party establishment people, and they wanted something different. They didn't want Trump, and frankly, they didn't want Joe Biden either. Kamala wasn't a part of that equation. And so they were like, no, you went to Trump? We don't want Trump. That's why we went with you. So he had no ability to deliver the vote. Unlike Nikki Haley, who can and has effectively delivered half of her 4 million who supported her over to Kamala Harris in places where it matters, including battleground states. That's why her going on Fox News yesterday, I'd have a hot take up on the network now. Her going on Fox News was so monumental because, and I love her. No, I don't love her. Let me just rephrase that. I don't love Nikki Haley. I love the fact that she figured out a way to make Trump world think she was endorsing Donald Trump on this interview, but everybody else that was listening to her heard her endorse Kamala Harris. And they've done the polling, and they think that Kamala's going to get 46 or 48% of Nikki Haley's vote, which is being delivered to her because character matters for them. We may not agree with Nikki's character, but character matters for them, and they can't abide Donald Trump. And so, yeah, the 1.5% that voted for or supported RFK Jr. were never going over to Donald Trump. And now he's decided, well, I guess this was the bargain when he was signing the contract, literally, to join Donald Trump. He also said, well, I'm on the ballot in some places. Why don't I? You could hear them just talking about this in some smoke-filled room. You know, Donald Trump with a Sharpie marker in one hand, a Diet Coke in the other. And they're like, how do we best do this? So you should stay on the ballot in places where it'll hurt Kamala and you'll drain votes for Kamala. But in places where you'll drain votes for me, you got to come off the ballot. So that's what he's been doing. So he wants off of Wisconsin and Michigan, which are major battleground states. So if the polling is right, and I don't think it is, but if the polling is right, Kamala's got a 0.5 point lead or less than 1 point lead in both those places. So any little could go in her favor. So he wants off of Wisconsin and Michigan, but he wanted to stay on in New York, where he was thrown off. And the Supreme Court, in 2 weeks apart, on the New York one, we reported a couple of weeks ago, they were like, no, you don't live in New York. You didn't properly follow the rules there. You're coming off the ballot in New York. And so it's just going to be Kamala and Donald Trump and whoever else is listed there. And then they had the opportunity to look at Michigan and Wisconsin. Michigan and Wisconsin. And they said, I'll just play out. I'll do role play here. Supreme Court in the briefing. What is your proposal for Michigan and Wisconsin? Oh, we take little tiny pieces of tape, little labels, and we put them on the ballots over my name. And they're like, well, what about the 200,000 ballots that I went out already or that have already been voted on? Exactly. And how close are we to the election? A week. Yeah, we're not doing that. So in a one-liner, they said, emergency application to get on denied. We don't know exactly who, except we do know because, of course, Neil Gorsuch decided that at least in Michigan, it seemed kind of interesting and he wanted to hear the appeal, but nobody else did. So done. He stays on the ballot. Any kind of drain from those two states will probably be against Donald Trump. Yay, that was a little bit of a slight win for Kamala Harris. And then he's staying on the ballot and he's getting off the ballot in New York, which again is another place where, she's going to win New York by like 12 to 15 points. So I'm not really worried about New York. But the Supreme Court can't help itself getting involved when they say they're never going to get involved in elections this close to an election. And now I'll turn it to you for the Virginia, what just happened literally today, as before we were going on the air, what happened in their decision about Virginia and purging the voter rolls.
Well, let me tell you, first of all, Popok, the sunset behind you is just stunning. So I just have to mention that and call that out because, I mean, look at that. It's unbelievably
hold on.
beautiful. I mean, no, really, it's absolutely beautiful. So, I just had to mention it because it's stunning, stunning, stunning. So, look, the Supreme Court really, they just don't follow the law anymore. They don't follow the actual law anymore, and they're allowing Virginia. And the reason I say this is because Virginia is going to be allowed to continue to purge voters from the voter rolls. And how did this come about? So this came about because there are officials in Virginia who are who have removed individuals who are on the voter rolls, who've already attested to their citizenship, right? Swear under penalty of perjury that they're a United States citizen when they register. People who have voted for years and years and years, people who are 100% citizens that have no problem. They're Virginia residents, but in their DMV records, okay, they're flagged as a potential non-citizen. And I guess the DMV reached out to people, and if they failed to respond within 14 days to this one single mailer, I mean, who pays attention to like a weird DMV mailer? Half the time, it's all junk mail anyway. And so it's DMV data is notoriously extremely unreliable. Trust me, as a former prosecutor, when we were looking for people or we were trying to get information on people, you take it with a grain of salt, the DMV data, because it is inherently unreliable and sometimes contradictory to what's actually the fact, right? Like, what if you check the wrong box? Or also, guess what? Virginia driver's license, they are available to non-citizens, but sometimes they become citizens after the fact, right? They're applying for citizenship and they become citizens, but they don't uncheck that box or whatever it is, they become naturalized. And so Virginia has decided they've removed, I think something like a couple thousand people since the start they started this program. And yet also, just to put into context, in 20 years, not a single non-citizen in Virginia has been prosecuted for voting. So this isn't a problem in Virginia. This is this not like there's some issue or some problem that they've uncovered. This is literally the Republicans trying to once again disenfranchise people who they believe, who could this impact? This could impact that category of people that I just said, people who had a non-citizen voting ID and became naturalized and their driver's license hasn't come up for renewal in that window, in that time period. And so they might be a citizen. They've attested that they're a citizen when they registered to vote. And, but for whatever reason, DMV hasn't caught up to that data. So again, this is not a problem. This is just part of the Maga conspiracy theory that they're trying to say that non-citizens are voting, and they've just been going through. And there's a federal law that says within 90 days of an election, you can't do exactly what they're doing. It's under the National Voter Registration Act, and it prohibits any last-minute effort to remove people within this 90-day quiet period or this window, and it's intended to protect voters from any last minute changes. And so you would think, because there's a federal law that specifically says states can't do this, you would think that the Supreme Court would say, sorry, you can't do that. The federal courts said that, right? What happened here was a pro-democracy group basically came forward and said, just one other thing before I get to the lawsuit that's also really shitty about this, frankly, is that if somebody were purged from the rolls, okay, but wanted to vote absentee, if they were purged when they shouldn't have been, but they want to vote absentee, they can't, because the deadline to request an absentee ballot is already passed. So it's like they can't even fix the problem. So essentially a pro-democracy group tried to enjoin or bring an injunction to stop Virginia from doing this, because this was an executive order that the governor implemented, and the lower courts all agreed, but the Supreme Court, of course, is like, nope, go ahead, you can continue doing that, no problem, and we have no issue with this. And of course, the three liberal justices didn't agree with the decision. They didn't give a decision. They just didn't, they're just leaving it that they can continue to do it. It's just really terrible, And the other thing that's ironic is this is an executive order from Ron Youngkin, who's the governor. And some of the people who've been disenfranchised, one of them was a Youngkin, Ron Youngkin staffer. So, he got purged from it. But, look, the bottom line is Virginia voters have been asked, they should check their voter registration status and see if they are affected by this. And if they are eligible and they're not registered, that people should know you can still go to your local polling place and you can attest and certify and get yourself to be able to vote, even if you were purged, because this was just a politically motivated effort to try and spread lies to then later challenge election results, and trying to just remove voters from the rolls during a time when you're not allowed to. But I just don't understand how it is that the Supreme Court doesn't follow the law. It just don't get it. They just do it only when it suits them.
Yeah, you had, as you said, you had two competing doctrines there. One is a federal law passed in 1993, which is that quiet period, 90 days before an election. You can't F with the voter rolls. And then you've got the Purcell doctrine, which is federal courts are supposed to stay out of it and not supposed to interfere. They just decided, obviously, to rule that the status quo was the purging of the rolls, not the pre-purge. And once they picked the status quo as being that, then they said, Purcell doctrine. But we don't really know what they said because it was a one-line order other than Roberts saying, I gave it to the full court, so it's not a shadow docket per se. And we'll get around to maybe taking this appeal. And if we don't take this appeal, then we'll lift the stay order, and Judge Giles' decision in the Fourth Circuit's decision about purging, now that it's over, will stand. But maybe we'll take the appeal and we'll change the law. We don't know. But right now, we're going to stay everything. And just as you said earlier, it was so eye-popping that Virginia outsourced their voter roll process to the Department of Motor Vehicle. Is anybody, can you imagine the same people that handle your registration for your car are now in charge of determining whether you're eligible to vote? And as you say, when people are filling out their forms at DMV, there's so many forms. I mean, I've changed states a couple of times in my life. There's so many forms at the Department of Motor Vehicle. And to get these new licenses with the right stamp on it, you got to have, I had literally, my pile to be admitted into the bar was shorter than what the paperwork I had to bring when I got to Jersey. And so those are the people that are confirming citizenship. There is a process. Rolls are not the polls, is what I like to say. Whether you're, yes, you got to be registered. But if you've illegally voted because you voted when you shouldn't have, you could be prosecuted. Just to give a broader picture here, a neighboring state to Virginia, Georgia, just did an audit of their 8 million votes during the presidential election. And of the 8.2 million votes, they found 12 instances of non-citizens either registering or voting. And they're prosecuting the 4 that tried to vote. That's it. That just demonstrates to hopefully the entire world, but it won't, that there is no outcome determinative fraud in America. There is fraud. I'm here to declare there is always fraud in the election, whether intentional or otherwise. There's always is. It's just not large enough to, given the volume of voting that goes on, to be outcome determinative. And so, as you said, every time you hear a Republican talk about voter integrity, you have to translate that into voter. They want to suppress your vote. They want to rip up your vote and or your place on the rolls and or the certification of your vote for electoral college and throw it in the dumpster and maybe set it on fire. Because we just have cases going on now in Portland, Oregon and Vancouver, Washington, where they're throwing incendiary devices into ballot drop boxes, burning the ballots. The only thing that saves some of them is I learned something I hoped I never would have to learn, that there are fire suppression systems inside of modern drop boxes for your vote.
Wow.
Why? Why does there need to be fire suppression devices? Because my vote is sacred and it's not supposed to be effed with by anybody. And so the good news, as you said, there's plenty of time for those people that dropped off their ballots to go check with their local offices to see if their votes have been received, their ballots have been received and cast. And if it isn't, to vote in time for the election. That's something that everybody should be mindful of. I early voted. I got my thing. I got a photocopy. I got a copy of my ballot. When it went, hit the button, cast, done. Very excited. But 22 states allow, Karen, for those, and it's fine. I'm in favor of every way to vote, but vote once, legitimately. Mail-in, absentee, early voting, extended hours, everything that gets everyone to vote, right, and gets their vote counted, I am completely in favor of. 6 states in this country ban drop-box voting. Why? Because it's not any more corrupt than anything else, given the level of corruption. And every vote counts the same. You don't get like extra, it's not extra weighted because you stood in line on election day. The mail-in vote is the same vote as the absentee or the drop-by. All of it is the effing same. I'm getting fired up. So, look, Supreme Court, as we've observed, and we're keeping an eye on them, bends the rules all the time in order to legislate from the bench. And they do it here. This is not the last time you and I, or Ben and me, or whomever, are going to be talking about this United States Supreme Court, this term, being involved with this election, either at the vote counting stage, the election hours stage, the vote counting stage, the certification stage, all the way up to the Electoral College count on January 6th. This Supreme Court, mark my words, there's going to be several, because there's already lawsuits that are out there, dozens and dozens of lawsuits filed by Maga, just waiting to rear their ugly head and end up at the United States Supreme Court. You and I are going to be quite busy when that happens. Tuesday is not the end; it's the beginning, even if we win. So let's talk about. You want to lead off with Cannon? Talk about Judge Cannon and the order that she just, where she denied the motion to recuse. Hold on 1 second. I want to check something.
Yes.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. Maybe. Let's do Cannon, then we'll do our next thing. So why don't you do a quickie on Cannon, the motion that was filed to recuse her by the would-be assassin of Donald Trump, claiming that, you're buddies with Donald Trump. He just publicly announced that you're going to be his attorney general. Maybe you should get off the case. How about that? How about the appearance of impropriety is so overwhelming that you should step down? So we got to see the first opportunity of how Judge Cannon thinks about these things and what she's willing to admit has happened and what she's not willing to admit has happened. What did you take away from it?
Yeah, look, so as you said, the Ryan Routh, the guy who was hiding in the bushes, wanted to try and assassinate Trump, has filed 2 recusal motions asking for her to recuse herself. The first being that Trump appointed her, and the second being that, well, now this leaked memo showing that you're on the short list for all these other jobs, that essentially you have to recuse yourself. And look, recusal of a judge is very, very hard. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy hurdle to get a judge to recuse themselves. The federal law, the recusal statute is 28 United States Code, Section 455. Ryan Routh asked under 455A, which is the catch-all, which basically says any justice, judge, or magistrate of the United States shall disqualify himself in any proceeding in which his impartiality might reasonably be questioned. This is the appearance of impropriety or impartiality catch-all, meaning like there's certain delineated, like if you were in private practice and you represented somebody who is now coming before you, now that you're a judge, you have to recuse yourself. There's certain delineated times when you have to recuse yourself, but in these appearance of impropriety cases, it's essentially is, it would an objective person call into reasonably question the impropriety. And because, the Constitution does allow or require, there has to be there can't be bias, right? That you have to be fair and impartial as a judge. So that was the catch-all category that they said that they asked her to recuse herself, citing the various motions in favor of Trump, right? You know, the first matter was when the search warrant came before her. There was no criminal case yet, just a search warrant. And she appointed a magistrate to go through the Lago documents case, which was so outside the bounds of any normal thing that any judge would do in a criminal case, that the circuit just all unanimously reversed her on that. And at first people chalked it up to maybe she's just inexperienced because she hasn't been a judge for a very long time. But then when the second time came about, when she basically wrote a love letter to Donald Trump on the first day of the Republican National Convention, dismissing the Mar-a-Lago case, saying that the special counsel is improperly appointed and funded and invalid, and therefore your whole case gets dismissed, which is also a ridiculous decision that is up on appeal now. And the third thing is this leaked letter basically saying that she's auditioning for higher office, and she's on the short list, right, to be handed either higher judgeship or attorney general of the United States of America. And there was another thing too. It was interesting. I guess she went to one of the prosecutor's wedding and went to high school with him or her. And so those were all the bases to ask for her recusal. She denied it, and she wrote I think it was like 7 pages or whatever, basically saying, I've never met or spoken to Trump other than telling him that he had to be present in court, in my courtroom on hearings. I have no control over what private citizens say about me or the media or public officials or candidates for office, or, what they say about me or my judicial rulings, and nor am I concerned with the politics. BS, I call it bullshit. And she just basically denied it. And she said, and also basically, just because I went to someone's wedding once, I'm not really friends with this person either, then I'm not going to recuse myself. I don't know. The whole thing was just, it is very hard to get a judge to recuse themselves. So I wouldn't read anything into the fact that she didn't do it. But I mean, come on, if there was ever a judge that is biased in favor of Trump, I mean, it's this judge. I've been before a lot of judges, just like you have. You can't usually tell which way a judge leans. They're usually very good about keeping politics out of it, not showing any favoritism. But her rulings are just so outside the bounds of interpretation of the law that she's full on Maga, I think. It certainly appears that way. So I'm not surprised that Ryan Routh wanted to try to get her off the case. I mean, I have no love for Ryan Routh either. He's he had a gun and he was trying to assassinate somebody. That's not a good thing either, right? Yeah. But I don't blame him for not wanting her as the judge in that case. There's no way she can be impartial.
I got a different angle on this one, but we're going to talk about that when we get back from another round of our amazing sponsors, without whom, just to answer that question, the eternal question, without whom we probably wouldn't exist, not in our current format, not here on the Midas Touch Network, and not here on the Legal AF YouTube channel. So let's do a shout out to our sponsors for tonight's episode. How closely do you track your bank statements and credit card transactions? I mean, honestly, I don't have time to do it as much as I'd like. But Rocket Money makes it so much quicker and easier to stay on top of my finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that empowers you to save more, spend less, and take control of your financial life. With Rocket Money, you can see all of your checking, savings, credit cards, and investments in one convenient place, allowing you to understand your spending trends. Rocket Money can help you set up a custom budget by identifying top spending categories and suggesting areas where you can adjust your spending habits. They'll calculate your monthly spending allowance and alert you when you're close to going over budget, so you can save more and spend less. I got 2 areas that I like to get control of: how much I spend on eyewear and takeout sushi. That alone could fund my daughter's college tuition savings account. They also have a goals feature that automatically saves money for you, so you don't even have to think about it. Whether your goal is to pay off your credit card debt, set away money for a house, or simply save your money, Rocket Money makes it easy. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you, sometimes up to 20%. Saving money on a cell phone or cable bill and not having to deal with customer service yourself, a dream come true. Rocket Money has over 5 million happy members and has saved its users over 1 billion across all of the app's features. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Get Rocket Money today at rocketmoney.com/legalaf. That's rocketmoney.com/legalaf. rocketmoney.com/legalaf.
People often say they are surprised to learn that I'm 58 years old and I'm a grandmother. Well, I attribute that to my skincare routine because I am always trying to have younger, healthier looking skin. So One Skin is a cream that I put on my face every single day. It has a proprietary OS1 peptide, which is the first ingredient proven to switch off the damaged senescent cells that cause lines, wrinkles, and thin, crepey skin. It's free from over 1,500 chemicals and preservatives that can make your skin red, irritated, itchy, and it's really great for sensitive skin. It's dermatologist tested and approved by independent testing platforms like SkinSafe. So it was founded and led by an all-woman team of skin longevity scientists. One Skin's products are backed by extensive lab and clinical data to validate their efficacy and safety on all skin types. They've got over 6,300 five-star reviews for their full line of face, body, sun, and travel size products. One Skin's multi-purpose products prove you don't need a complicated routine to achieve healthier skin. The cleaner that you keep your skin and use it and you put these topical supplements on, they can be used with other products or treatments, and they easily fit into your current skincare routine, which is what I've done. So One Skin, the world's first longevity company for skin, focuses on the cellular aspects of aging. It keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. For a limited time only, you can try One Skin with a 15% off code using LegalAF at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with LegalAF. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about it. Please support this show and tell them we sent you. Go to oneskin.co. There's no M at the end. It's not .com. Thank you, One Skin.
Cat food has been the same forever. It's time for cat food to move into the 21st century. That's why you've got to try Smalls. It's time to make kibble a thing of the past. Smalls cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free ingredients you'd find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. That's why veterinarians.org rates Smalls 10 out of 10 for ingredient quality. My cat, Chanel, yes, Chanel, her favorite flavor is smooth fish, and my cat prefers Smalls way more than her previous cat food. I did a taste test. I put two bowls side by side, and Chanel immediately went to Smalls. Smalls was started back in 2017 by a couple of guys home cooking cat food in small batches for their friends. And a few short years later, they've served millions of meals to cats across the U.S. I feel better knowing I'm feeding my cat Chanel real food, not burnt kibble. I can finally open a packet of cat food and not get nauseous. I actually recognize the ingredients in a packet of Smalls food. After making the switch to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. That's a big deal. The team at Smalls is so confident your cat will love their product that you can try it risk-free. That means they will refund you if your cat won't eat their food. Now is the time to make the switch to Smalls. Head to smalls.com/legalaf and use promo code LegalAF at checkout for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. That's the best offer you'll find, but you have to use my code LegalAF for 50% off your first order. One last time, that's promo code LegalAF for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. And we are back. Yeah, we're going to move on to Bannon and what happened to Paul Pelosi's attacker. My only comment about Canada, and I got a hot take up on it, is that there are two things that I found both troubling and beyond curious, is the way she framed the issue about the job opportunity being proposed to her by the fake leak by the Trump transition team, putting her at number 2 at the top of the Attorney General list. Which has not been denied by the Trump campaign or by the transition team. And so rather than, so the way she framed, what I would have done if I were an honest judge is I would have listed it all out. There has been news reports, and in those news reports, there is a leaked memo. And in the leaked memo, I'm number 2 at the Attorney General level. But that's not how she framed it. She said, there's idle speculation by the media and I can't control it. And, that's just making it a straw man. That's not exactly at all what are the allegations that are in the media, again, not denied by Donald Trump. And then at the point in the order where I thought, well, here she'll deny that she's had any connection with the Trump transition team or any proxies of Donald Trump to vet her or start to vet her for that position. All she said was, I've never spoken to Donald Trump. I've just seen him once in my courtroom. Well, that's not the question. The question is, have you or anybody in your inner circle spoken to anybody in Donald Trump's inner circle or the transition team about this position? She didn't deny that. If she could, I'm sure she would have written that. And that's what gave me a lot of trouble. And then I think Jack Smith's going to have to make a major decision at the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals about whether he asks to have her reassigned, because that's the thing that we don't have time on this particular podcast to talk about it, but there's briefing up at the 11th Circuit about whether she was right or wrong, thumbs up or thumbs down, in dismissing the entirety of the indictment against Donald Trump and his co-conspirators in Mar-a-Lago. You got 40 counts that went out the window because Aileen Cannon said so, and without a proper analysis and her finding that, well, yeah, all special counsels are improperly appointed and funded under the Constitution. Didn't you know that? Well, no, we haven't known that for 250 years, so no. But that's up at the 11th Circuit. And then when they reverse her, and they will, they're going to have to send it back to somebody. It's got to go to some trial judge. With this appearance of impropriety, which is the standard, that's another thing she missed in her order. The proper balancing of it's not I take umbrage to the claim that I am unethical. How dare you? That's not the standard. The standard is, would a regular member of the public observing the facts have his or her view of the justice system undermined because of the appearance of impropriety? That's why it's called an appearance of impropriety. She acted like she had a whole evidentiary hearing about whether it actually is true or not. Although she did, like I said, she did nothing to deny the fundamental precepts of it. 11th Circuit's going to have to get to the bottom of this. Let's talk about Bannon and Pelosi. Why don't you take it with your old office, the Manhattan DA? People forgot about this one. But, we got a judge who's tapping her foot. She was going to try the case in May, but she had to wait for Chief Idiot here to get out of the federal prison for 4-month sentence on contempt of Congress. But the Build the Wall Foundation money laundering and conspiracy case is back with one defendant. His name is Steve Bannon. And the guy he did all the bad things with is already in federal penitentiary for 51 months. Mr. Colfage, why don't you talk about what Alvin Bragg is doing, why he's doing it, and what do you think is going to happen? Do you think he gets convicted or not?
Yeah, so this is a case where essentially Steve Bannon and this other individual and others, they created this foundation, this Build a Wall Foundation, and they were seeking donations and told everyone every dollar that comes in is going to go towards building the wall, and we're not taking a salary, and how great that we're not taking a salary, and et cetera, right? Like every penny you donate goes here. And so they are essentially charged with money laundering, conspiracy, and scheme to defraud, because P.S. Guess what? Turns out that wasn't true. What turns out was that they were using this money and reimbursing, taking money that was supposed to be for building a wall. Whether you agree or disagree with it, it's still defrauding the people who gave money to you. He was doing things like getting plastic surgery. Not Steve Bannon, but the CEO guy that's serving a federal prison sentence who admitted to it. He's co-conspirator number one. He's not named in the Manhattan DA indictment, but just based on the facts, it's got to be him. So he's got to be cooperating. And he's going to say, yeah, I bought a luxury yacht, a luxury SUV, lavish vacations, plastic surgery, all the other kind of grifting things that you would expect. Of course, Steve Bannon's like, oh no, we were just reimbursing him for expenses like Xerox machines, Xeroxing and that kind of stuff. No, that's not true. And P.S., they've got all kinds of text messages and emails between them, covering it up, just say this or don't say that. And, it was so clear. It reads like every other criminal kind of text message exchange, email exchange, where they say, the cover-up's worse than the crime. Well, here the crime and the cover-up's pretty bad. But the cover-up here is just showing the intent, like that this was intentional. This wasn't reimbursing someone for normal expenses like your phone bill, right? You're making phone calls to get money donated to build the wall. You can imagine a scenario where the phone bill is paid for. That could be considered a reasonable expense and still not take a salary. This guy was getting like $20K a month. I mean, just he was getting more than a salary. They use this as their personal piggy bank. And look, Steve Bannon, once again, he was pardoned federally for this, but in the state, they found that it doesn't apply here. And I had to do a little bit of research again because there's this double jeopardy doctrine, right, that says you can't be prosecuted for the same thing twice. And this came up during Paul Manafort when he was pardoned by Trump. The Manhattan DA's office tried to prosecute him, and actually that case was held to have that was double jeopardy. The fact that he was pardoned was double jeopardy to the Manhattan DA's office, and I had to remind myself why Steve Bannon is not. And that's because Paul Manafort was convicted. He actually went to trial and was convicted. And his conviction, he was pardoned for that. Here, Steve Bannon was pardoned federally, but never went to trial and never convicted. And so that didn't trigger the New York State double jeopardy statute that would have said you can't prosecute the person twice for the same thing. And if he was pardoned, he's pardoned. So that's why that case still exists. He's charged with C felonies. That's mid-level, right? So in New York, the felonies go A, B, C, D, and E. If you remember, Donald Trump was convicted of 34 counts of a Class E felony, the lowest level felony. Steve Bannon is charged with C felonies. They're mid-level felonies. This guy can get something like 5 to 15 years in prison if he's convicted, and he's a convicted criminal. He just did 4 months for disobeying he was prosecuted by the DOJ for contempt of Congress because he refused to comply with the subpoena to Congress, who was investigating the Jan 6 committee. And he takes it as a badge of honor that he likens it to his time serving in the Navy when he back in the day when he was when he served in the military, that I'm serving my time for you too. I'm a patriot. He's part of this right-wing extreme movement who thinks that installing their dictator, Donald Trump, and overthrowing our democracy is patriotic, because that's the America they want to live in, and that's who he is. And once again, I've said this 1,000 times on Legal AF, on Mistrial, and everywhere in between. So proud of my old office, the Manhattan DA's office, where I worked for 30 years. Once again, doing the job that the federal government should do, but can't do and isn't doing, and bringing the cases that need to be brought. And there were people in Manhattan who donated, who were defrauded. And so there's jurisdiction over this case, and they're going to hold him to account. If they can prove this case, he's going to prison, this guy. And so there's nothing Trump can do about it.
Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, starting in the infant division of the Manhattan DA's office 30 years ago, worked her way up to the second in command of the office. Shout out.
One skin makes me look that way.
She moved from infant to newborn. Shout out to Alvin Bragg, who came on the show for an interview with you. God, it seems like a decade ago, but it wasn't. It was like 2 years ago. And we've got thick skins. Yours is thicker than mine. And you, years of being a prosecutor, tough as nails. And you took some grief and some heat. Oh, you're not asking him the right questions. And Alvin Bragg is just like this or that. Everybody's got their own strong opinions about your old boss and everything. You know what? Let's give equal time here to do a pat on the back of Alvin Bragg, who got a 17-count felony conviction of Donald Trump's 2 companies for tax evasion and business record fraud. Alvin Bragg, who got a 34-count felony conviction, the only one against Donald Trump. Alvin Bragg.
True.
Who is bringing the case against Steve Bannon? Alvin Bragg.
Yeah.
This guy might go down in the history as one of the greatest Manhattan DAs.
And you know, he is phenomenal. He's phenomenal. People love him there. And Cy Vance was great too, by the way. And Cy Vance started these investigations and brought these cases, just that they're going to trial here. So I want to, you know, the Manhattan DA's office was amazing under Mr. Morgenthau, who hired me, Cy Vance, who I worked for, and Alvin Bragg, who is carrying the torch and leading this office in just the most amazing way. I never worked for Alvin Bragg. I don't know him other than as the current DA, and I am not there anymore and haven't worked for him, but by all accounts he's doing just a phenomenal job, and he's a great leader of that office.
Why don't you get him back on mistrial? I'd like to join that episode. Right?
Don't think I haven't tried. Don't think I haven't tried.
Valedictorian victory lap for Alvin Bragg after he convicts Bannon.
So if I were his chief assistant, I would counsel him to wait until after the sentencing.
All right. That's fine. Oh yes. Well, that's a good point. Let's just everybody circle on your calendars. We'll see what happens. Sort of election dependent a little bit. November 26th, Donald J. Trump is going to be sentenced as a common criminal in Judge Merchan's courtroom. Bannon goes to trial sometime in 60 days. So in December, October, November, in December. So they'll be passing each other in the hallway. And speaking of passing each other in the hallway, at the moment that
December 8th.
That's the trial date, December 8th.
December 8th.
Yeah, my birthday's the 2nd for those out there that want to. No, don't get me anything. And Bannon comes out. You can tell he spent 4 months in jail because the first thing he had to say was, "Nancy Pelosi can suck it." I'm like, this is the rhetoric. This is the vocabulary we use against women and women leaders in our country. Seriously? Well, I'll tell you who is going to suck it, apparently, is David DePape, who's already been sentenced to 35 years in jail for taking a hammer and hammering literally Paul Pelosi in the head, almost braining him to death, suffered severe brain trauma, brain injury. And that was, we call him, and I rightly call him out on a hot take. He's the darling of Maga, because Maga circled around David DePape, and this happened. The attack on what would have been Nancy Pelosi, that was his goal. But he's an idiot, obviously. So he went there while the midterm elections were going on. A couple of days later, Nancy Pelosi was, of course, in Washington, but her husband, 81 years old, was at home in San Francisco. And this guy shows up, I'm not making this shit up, with a unicorn costume and zip ties, because he was going to wear a unicorn costume and interview Nancy Pelosi with a GoPro, I guess affixed to his unicorn horn, on national television. This is like the king of comedy, old movie gone terribly, terribly awry. And Paul Pelosi shows up because, this is what you do when you're at 3 o'clock in the morning. You hear an intruder at your house. You're wearing your boxer shorts. Shows up in the vestibule of his house. The guy with the cops there, because the cops came but came late. He took out a hammer and hit Paul Pelosi in the head twice, crumpling him to the ground. And Maga, he was the darling of Maga. Maga started, instead of saying, "Oh my God, what a terrible event in American history. It could be my family, and elected officials should not be subjected to this, or their families. And this guy's no." They said maybe Paul Pelosi's gay, and this was a gay sex event that gone awry. I'm like, what? Why? Because the guy showed up at 3 o'clock in the morning. The guy was in his underwear. How do you dress for an intruder if in the MAGA world? You go to bed wearing a tuxedo? And so I will never forgive them for the depravity of going after. And then, it's always a 1-2 punch with them. It's always, and LGBTQ+. It's always something that attacks another American, like the ad campaign that is running nonstop on Hispanic television, Black-oriented programs, and other programs, in which it's pictures of people who they claim to be transgender, or phony pictures of people who have made that passage in life from, let's say, woman to man or man to woman or whatever, and pictures of other things that are just totally inappropriate, drag queens and that kind of thing. I mean, for the point that they're making, and then Donald Trump is for you, and Kamala Harris is for they, them. Just completely dividing America, trying to get black votes. I saw one recently, a version of that very same one, the same tagline, where it's phony black radio hosts who are like, oh, she's in favor of transgender conversion surgery for prisoners. Like, this is on everybody's mind. This is when I go to bed at night, I think, I wonder if who's in charge, who's going to be in favor of transgender sex change operations in prison. Really? But this is just a way to divide and peel off some votes here and there. So DePape gets prosecuted by state and federal. In federal, he's convicted of attempted kidnapping on a federal official, and then there's a count for harming a family of a federal official. Gets 35 years in prison, but he's been hanging out in jail, not been permanently assigned, waiting for this second. He pled guilty to the state law claims, good old fashioned battery with a deadly weapon, intent to kill, all that, elder abuse. And he got sentenced by a San Francisco based trial judge on the state side to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. He'll be serving his terms concurrently in a state not fun penitentiary like the feds can sometimes be. It's not going to Alcatraz. They don't use that anymore, but it's going to be close. And that's a warning to the rest of MAGA who show up. And I'm saying this to anyone, any sleeper cell of crazy that's activated by Donald Trump. I don't want them showing up at anybody's houses. I don't want them even showing up at Marjorie Taylor Greene's or Matt Gaetz or federal judges that I don't appreciate. I don't want anybody trying to harm anybody else in our society, try to assassinate them or kidnap them or do anything else. I just don't want that. That's not the America that I grew up in. That's not the America that I want. That's why I got to vote for Kamala Harris, to ensure that the law is and the guardrails around our democracy are protected. You've done some federal and state dual prosecutions. Anything you picked up from the reporting about David DePape going away forever?
Just that the judge in the sentencing said, just to be clear, I wanted to be on the record that I'm sentencing you to life without the possibility of parole. Just because in case, one day when I remember there was a judge in New York that said to somebody on the record of the sentencing, he goes, I just want you to know, sir, your parole officer isn't even born yet. That's how long you're going to be going away for.
That's a good line.
And he's like, and I want the record to reflect that you are never to see the light of day. And judges, that they put that on the record because one day when people are, you have no idea what political wins there will be. And to the extent that you look at a record, the people who saw the witnesses, who saw the defendant, who looked at the facts and know what's going on, one day you could imagine a scenario where they say, oh, this gentleman is mentally ill, and he was abused as a child or whatever, whatever caused him to do the things that, obviously no one who is a healthy, emotionally healthy individual would do something as crazy and terrible as what he did to Paul Pelosi. And so the judge wanted to make his sentiment clear on the record here that this is somebody who should never see the light of day. So that's the only thing I saw that I happened to pick up.
We need to link arms to ensure that we write our own ending here. And it's not the ending of the American democracy. And we're you and I will see each other, but we're not going to see each other before the election in terms of this podcast. Ben and I will see each other on Saturday. But we are working overtime over on the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF and on our new YouTube channel. Take a minute. Early voting has started. Go over to Legal AF MTN for Midas Touch Network. That is our call sign. That is our address on Legal AF, and help us. We're at 262,000 people, I think, already after just 5 weeks. Help us grow that network so it's here beyond it. If I could sentence anybody to lifetime of anything, it's a lifetime to Midas Touch Network, Legal AF, mistrial, and all the rest. That's the sentence I can live with for a lifetime. But we're working hard. Many of us are. Dina Dahl is in Nevada. at polling places, observing for the Democratic lawyers. I'm still thinking about flying into one of the battleground states on election day to contribute my efforts there, and just being behind the microphone and doing what I could do and motivate people and animate people and give them hope and hope. And if we're wrong, we'll all be back right here. And we'll talk about what we can do and what we should do into the future, because the MAGA movement, unfortunately, is not going to be crushed out of existence on Tuesday. And it has spawned. It's like that Gremlins movie when I was a kid. Somebody fed it after dark and got it wet, and now it's everywhere. And we have to watch it in all these other MAGA states. So we still have a fight for our democracy and rule of law that will continue long past Tuesday. And I can't think of anybody better that I'd like to put on a cape with and do it with than you, Karen Friedman, Agnifilo. So we've reached the end. Thank you very much. You too, right here. And look, you are magical. You do have superpowers. Look at you. Do I have that? No, I don't have that. So
I bet you could.
I bet you do too. So support our sponsors, really important. Patreon.com/legalaf. Mistrial with Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and others on Thursday. The new Legal AF YouTube channel in collaboration with the Midas Touch Network. We got a store. You can buy t-shirts, store.midastouch.com. All sorts of different ways to fly the flag of Legal AF and Midas Touch Network. But let me take a moment. We appreciate our entire audience. I can't tell you how heartwarming it is the few times, let's say during a week, I get to bump into somebody that is a follower of ours. It's very, very rewarding. We get emails and things. I get things in the mail for the baby, all sorts of things that are, and yeah, I mean, there's an occasional troll, but I have to tell you, there is no outcome determinative trolling on Midas Touch Network on Legal AF. Really, it's like one and then a million really positive, and sometimes constructive criticism. We can take it. I mean, it's like, well, like, okay. And, sometimes I've kind of incorporated it into me and try to be a better person, a better lawyer, a better podcaster, and all of that. But without you guys, this whole thing just falls apart. So we both really appreciate you. Right, Karen?
Absolutely. Ditto. Absolutely. The community, the Midas Touch community is just absolutely the most amazing part of my life. So professional life.
Yeah, same here. So until our show on Saturday with Ben Meiselas and me and our various other contributions around the network, I'm Michael Popok, and this is Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, my colleague, and we're signing off for Legal AF, the midweek.